Thank you very much for the introduction, Anna, and thank you very much for having us. I'm very delighted, and it's a great honor because I have admired your work, but Beatriz, for a long time, and it's wonderful to see you again and wonderful to be here. We thought of a format for these questions and answers that is familiar to everyone, but maybe not in the format of an interview. We'll do an alphabet. So to come closer to the world, the thought, and the art of Beatriz Milhazes, I thought of all the letters, and we'll start with A. My first letter A is the word atelier. I was wondering, when you are in your atelier and you look out the window, what do you see?
Well, actually, I think when I am in atelier, I should look inside. So it's everything like is around, and of course it's important for me. But what is most important is to have my studio as part of a very good atmosphere, something that I can recognize, that I feel familiar, that I feel at home. And that is very important for my practice. So I am what I call like a studio artist. So I really need my studio where it is, with all the memory, was all the time that has been there to make me develop my work. So everything that motivates you, of course, your reference that is out of the window, it should be forgotten, and then look to the inside.
Very good. Your studio is in Rio, and I know what you could see out of your window if you were to look out. It starts with a B, the botanical garden, right?
Yeah, so I'm lucky that I have the botanical garden next to my studio, and then it's like it's about the context, no? Because when I start developing my language, I always felt very connected with the modernism, the Brazilian modernism, and the European modernism. And so, the Brazilian modernism, what they were trying to exactly to take the information or the historical developments of the art, of the painting specifically, developments, and connected with things from our culture. So, and then later on, that it was something I wanted to do too. And so, but later on I understood it's not exactly about the culture, but about context. Because the fact that I am in Rio de Janeiro, like close to Botanical Garden, that I was born and grew up in this kind of, on the beach, so I grew up in Copacabana, I don't know if you heard, so it's a beach area, so all this context, with the contrast of the city that you can find in Rio, so it's a very strong nature, which is a real nature, ocean, forest, and all this kind of a thing. Also a very big social contrast, shifted with social contrast. So it's a city, all manifestation, like the popular manifestation, which is also very strong. So all these contrasts is what make Rio a city what it is. So it's like, so my context, I could not think as an European artist, as an American artist, because I live in this context, so, and I should be listen what is around me.
So, just to go back to the botanical garden.
Exactly. That is the problem about alphabets.
No, I'm thinking, is it because I'm not familiar with the botanical garden of Rio, is it an open park that anybody can just go in and out, or is it where you pay to get in and then
there are two very important, so it's a historical, so it was from the times of the colonial, when Brazil was colonized by Portuguese, the royalty. So it was one of the kings, Dom João VI, that he developed the garden. So the idea is still the same, it still is. So is research, is a kind of a department of the federal government that is for researching about plants and is planting flowers, botanical things in general, as all or most of the botanical garden. But in that case, the king by that time, so he was very enthusiastic about the tropical and forest, the Atlantic forest. And so and not only from Brazil, but from other colonies, Portuguese colonies. So he brought up to Rio, because Rio was the capital of Brazil. And so he brought to Rio so different kind of species of flowers and trees, and it's basically flowers and trees, yes. And they are still there, and they've been very well developed, and it's really nice place to visit if you go to Rio. It's a garden that linked it from one part, it linked with the Atlantic forest. So where my studio is, so this neighborhood, so it's the botanical garden is there, and then from that point you can go up to the Atlantic forest.
So you see the groomed gardens and you see the wild nature.
Exactly.
Well, for us Europeans, especially Northern Europeans, the shapes and the colors, of course, of Brazilian plants are such alluring shapes, and they are full of, I mean, they fill us with desire for anything warm and lush and beautiful. So, of course, the history of Brazilian modernism is, in our eyes, connected with these fantastical shapes and colors that occur in nature. Mm-hmm. And of course, you have a way of pulling all this together and creating artwork with all of these sources, nature and art and classic modernism, etc. But
yeah.
That brings me to the next letter, C, collage. Collage is one of your techniques, but it somehow informs your technique even if you paint. Can you say a little bit about your technique?
Yes, I think collage has been a kind of a concept for my work. So since I start in the 80s, so I work on paintings using like my paint was like fabrics that I bought that has been used for like the carnival parade costumes, and I put together with some different papers that I connect, so, and I build up the composition using collage papers on canvas. So from that point, I evolve, introducing the painting itself and think about patterns connected with these industrial kind of products. And by the end of the 80s, exactly in 89, I was very frustrating because the collage has the limitation of what you could find, available for sale, so industrial development. So I needed to, I stopped, and I have a big crisis in the studio because I didn't know how to move on with the painting, because I really wanted to continue to paint without having this access to these cutouts of things. And so, based on a monotype process, a very simple monotype made with a plastic sheet, so I figured out that the paint that remained on the plastic afterwards, after drying, that is the difference of my technique from the monotype process. I could peel off it on a different surface. And that it was a huge, big discovery, because monotype is based on wet, just for you to not understand anyway, because even people when they see, they don't understand. But why? But just to understand that it's a wet painting, so you put the paint and then you glue and then something pull off. But my case is like a dry paint. So I wait, so in the moment I could, after it's dry, the paint, I could remove it or transfer it for a different surface. That made me make me to develop my own drawings and my own motifs, that I could make it on one side of the plastic sheet, transparent, one clear one, and the other side I would paint. And then afterward, when it's become a kind of a film of acrylic paint, I could just glue it on a canvas, and then when it's dry, I could peel off the canvas and then the images stay. So that is, it was a huge discovery for me, open like a door that I could, first thing, I could make my own drawings, elements, motifs. It's all based on my own drawings. So the second thing is about the intensity of the colors, because I could keep the intensity of the colors because the plastic sheet doesn't really absorb the paint. So, and then it's very loyal to what I had made. Another thing is like metallics and fluorescent. They would keep, especially the metallics, that sometimes people think this like as gold leaf, but it's not. This quality is also because the painting absorbs the very soft surface of the plastic. Another thing is exactly about the collage, because I could still work with the concept of collages, but as something that is all about painting with paint, not paint with other materials. And so that was really a big open to my imagination.
So collage not only as a technique, but also as a concept.
Exactly. Only later on, so in 2003, so I did a collage for fun, like for friends, like Christmas cards and birthday cards and things like that. But as a work of art, I only started in 2003. So exactly when I received an invitation to do a kind of a residence while they were installing an exhibition at Dominique Hergagnac in Brittany, in France. And so, was like Frédéric Paul, he invited me to do the show and also gives me this opportunity. And then I have my collection of wrap papers.
That is a W.
Yeah, I know.
Wait with it.
Okay. Another letter. So it's okay. So that is like, at that moment, I exactly start. It was the opportunity to bring my collection and then start the collages as a work of art. So cut out of papers on paper.
The D is also an interesting letter, because D, like dance, has an impact on your work. I think this is called Dance of the Tree.
Yes.
And I know that you've been working with your sister, who has a dance company. So
yeah.
How is that collaboration going?
Exactly. So I think dance it has been introduced at home through my sister, actually through my parents, because actually my parents were my mother that's here today, she is an art historian teacher. So my father was a lawyer, but everybody very intellectual, no? So that was very important, that we have a lot of art inside home. Sorry. And then my sister, who is here, so she studied dance very young. And then we have the dance at home. Even I never have a particular interest. So when she started her company, her dance company, contemporary dance company. So of course, it was natural that I would be the one to do the sets. So that was my start with the dance. So we work in a very different way, because actually I don't follow rehearsals, because it's not my thing, honestly. Stage and, to work with theater, I'm totally out of, I love to watch, but not exactly being part of the professional side. So it was easy to work with her, because we could just talk and develop the things, and then I would design the set, and then from this point, so just briefly, so what happened in 2004, that my sister had one performance. It was the first time the sets I did, it was like invaded the stage. So this was a kind of a chandelier that was dropping things from the center of the stage, and then it called Tempo de Verão, at summertime. And so this piece, some curators that saw the performance, they were they want to take it to the museum shows and things like that. And then I said, no, I'm not prepared for that. This is just a set. It's nothing about sculpture. I'm not a sculptor. And so it's like, but then 4 years later, this piece went to Dan Cameron, what is an American curator. He invited me to participate in a group show. And then he said, I want that piece. And then I said, no, that piece is a set, but I decided to make a piece that would be a sculpture mobile for a museum exhibition. And so that was my start in sculpture. So that's what is interesting, is that from that point, in this moment, it became a kind of a series, if you want to call it that I call Gamboa. So that was the first Gamboa, because Gamboa now it has its own life. So I'm just managing, I just manage Gamboas. And so what was interesting, that Gamboa I developed for different space, because also is a kind of, is a mobile. We use like elements that comes from the props and some materials that has been used for carnival parades and things like that. So sculptures also from the carnival parades, so the materials. Also they are the artisans from the samba school. They develop the pieces, like followed by myself. Of course, accompanying the production. So this piece entered in the art field. And what recently happened, it was like that we decided why she could not perform, the company of my sister could not perform in the art gallery and working with the Gamboa. And so it was a kind of, so the set opened up a space for me to make sculptures, that now I also make other kind of sculptures. And then the dance meets the thing again, coming to the art field.
I'm combining like 80s. You have been painting since the 80s.
Exactly.
With the next letter G, gray. First time you're doing a gray painting. And we're sitting right in front of it. So this is very new, super new, a few days old, right? And we have the pleasure.
So you want to go directly to this?
I think.
Yeah, okay. I agree. So, no, it's fine. No, yes, the wall painting, it's something that Max was one of the person I spoke about. Wall painting for me always has been a very strange kind of a situation, because it's not a painting, because paint is process, and it's a project, and there's a wall, and then afterwards it's destroyed. So I always was very confused about what would mean wall painting. But then I understood one thing that is fascinating me is when I start doing public art. And also like that from my point just now, until now, is about dealing with architecture. And it could be different kind of, could be a wall painting, could be also windows projects for the glass. And so this kind of a possibility of enter in and managing and dealing with the architecture space is something that has been, I've been very engaged and interested. So here is a good example of it. So it's the first time I do a wall painting for a gallery show. I did 2 permanent ones for buildings, which is the public buildings. Here is the first time that is combining it, and also the first time I use only gray shades. So it's all about the installation, all about the architecture. So when we were planning and talking with the gallery, and I could do the show, whatever, so when I saw this space, when I received the plan, the model, the physical model, and then when I saw this wall, I thought, wow, this wall could be a good wall to warm up the room, to kind of embrace the paintings, and then with a very low and matte kind of presence, no?
It's great. I loved coming from this way, and then the columns, how the columns move when you go towards the painting, and then you have the vertical elements that have this kind of dialogue with the columns. It works really well. H, Harlequin. I saw that one of the, I don't know which work is it that
Is the one that's behind this wall there.
So what Harlequin, I'm thinking of Picasso or let's say early modernism. What does the Harlequin mean to you?
Well, actually, this since I think it's after the pandemic. My first gallery show, not a museum show, after the pandemic. It was in the Pace Gallery in New York. So I didn't because titles for me in general I don't really link in the way like it's I just do the opposite, because I think language is something really strong, and so if you say something, people will try to find it on what they see, and so I want people work with that their own kind of experience without leading them to a figurative response. So that's why normally, but since the group of painting I start more recently, for different reasons, I connect, but I connect in a kind of a subjective somehow, but has a connection. So the Harlequin is actually because this show has like another letter, but it's a kind of a ludic dream. No, it's more about a ludic dream. And then they had sorry.
What does ludic mean?
Ludic is, I don't know, like how to express. It's not like my own merit. It's a kind of how to say. Imaginary.
Okay.
Yeah, imaginary, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's imaginary, but in a way more like dream. Yeah. A dream on. So this painting has two things about Harlequin. One is this, that's kind of a part of, especially for the small paintings, now that you notice that I have to give like, not my memories from childhood, but like, so, but also is the hidden body. So there is one Brazilian critic of art that's really one of the best, I think, Paulo Reckenhoff. He wrote from the works of myself of the 90s, that I always love portraits. I love portraits. I love the still lifes and things, these kind of compositions. But I never would be a figurative artist. I'm totally an abstraction. But the idea of having this kind of a hidden body, and if you talk about dance too, you know. So this painting, also this one, has this kind of body, and then the Harlequin comes from all this kind of imaginary dream.
I skipped the F, which was flowers, because that is very interesting when you say you're a totally abstract artist, and the shape of the flower in some paintings, in some of your older work, it was even more present, but we have flowers here, we have the shapes of flowers there. So the pattern of the flower is almost like an abstract chiffre or something for you?
Well, flowers, it's really something that's very important, and actually you can follow how my works evolve. No, like I keep saying, like I feel like a scientist now in my studio, like introducing one new things that will evolve, create a kind of a chain reaction and evolve to another thing. So if you look at the flowers atmosphere, so you see very you could see this evolution, you know, and develop of the work. So flowers for me means immediately life, you know. It's follow and accompany us in good moments, bad moments, to bring joy, but sometimes to just help us with some melancholic moments. And about the shapes, about nature, you know, the alive nature, colors, what you find, but also applied art, because I think applied art has been also in different ways a great reference to my work. And in this possibility of the handmade work and trying to make something more beautiful, and the beauty connected with some spiritual moments. And I think flowers start at some figurative, and then it will evolve to forms and shapes that is coming from the flowers too, and about shapes and colors. So that is, yeah. In this case, more recent works, I pick up some figuration that I have in the 90s too, and I can start slowly trying to introduce for this more completely different space of the canvas, and of course very abstract. And they are like trying a way to come back.
In your, let's say, in the cosmos that is your source material, that we come to the next letter I, indigenous art. So you have really, it has to do with the high and low. You combine these different sources. How would you say is indigenous art a source for your inspiration?
Well, I think the indigenous arts are the Brazilian art. Mm-hmm. No, they were there when the Portuguese arrived. So they were there. They were developing this kind of a magical and things. So they are the base of many other things. Mm-hmm. That afterwards has been so. But looking for them specifically, so I've been, I'm very glad that it seems the moment now people are putting in the same level now some art that has been considered not the high art, you know. And so in the way I always wanted to be a painter. So, and painting, as probably you all know now, is considered high art. No? And so, to bring things from my context, so I look to all those artists that motivate me. It's part of my history too, it's part of my cultural environment and context that you talk. So, and bring it to the painting, developments that were not developed in Brazil. No, I'm talking about, of course, the history of art. So, which interests me a lot, and I think history is very important. And so it's like looking to the modernism, my Brazilian modernism. They did it. The artists, especially in the figure of Tarsila do Amaral, and also the European did the same in a totally different way. Looking to this. So-called low art, the primitive, and when the indigenous, unfortunately, were also put. But I consider them art, just art.
Yeah. Japan. Brazil has the biggest Japanese community outside Japan, and of course, Japanese aesthetics is also is a strong influence in the world. Is it also an influence for you?
Yes, I think Japanese that Japan is a very special thing that happens in my life too. I think it not exactly specific from the influence in the country, because the Japanese, that is interesting to know, like the Japanese community in Brazil, they are mostly, to say almost everybody is in São Paulo. I'm from Rio.
Okay.
So, and then also in the north, in one area of the Amazon, what people don't know, what is Pará, one of the states that cover Amazon. So, these are the two biggest Japanese community. And so, after Tokyo, it's true, after Japan. So, but I think it was exactly modern, again, the modern composition, they have looked to Japanese art and watercolors and things in the composition, the vertical, so that also influenced me in this way of thinking about compositions and the structure of paintings. But also, Yuko Hasegawa, which is, I think, when I saw like your word Japan, I said, Japan has been a place that I've been developed different, very important things, and is all connected with Yuko Hasegawa. So now she is the director of the 21st Museum of Contemporary Art in Hasegawa, in Kanazawa, and also the global director of the global director studies at Tokyo University. And Yuko, she first saw my work in '98 when I was part of the São Paulo Biennial. And then, since then, she has been really had a very strong and important connection with my work. And right now is the Inujima, I don't know if you have heard about the project, is Naoshima project, which is 3 islands. That's Naoshima is the center with the Fukutak Foundation, and then they have other 3, Teshima and Inujima. And then I did a big project. Also, there is one German, Olaf Eliasson, also we are in the same island, in Ujima. And these were the first time that I have a kind of a pavilion that actually the design was made for the architect, the Kazui Sejima. And I did a kind of it's a collaboration with the building that is an interference. I don't know if the word is good, but it's I did a kind of collaboration with this, and it's a permanent project in the island with this, if you haven't heard, it's good to know because it's a really fascinating kind of project. So that is still there, and they are traveling actually. Now is in Los Angeles with the Japan House in Los Angeles that they are just showing and developing the Inujima, which is Kazuya Sejima is in charge of the whole island. And this project involves community too, you know. And so it's working with this foundation. They try to revive this area of Japan. These 3 islands were about dying, because Inujima had 35 people living in the island when I started the project, and all of them, the average age was 80 years old. So, and then is one of the things I through the art, and then maybe the tourism that thing, and then the educational programs, and try to make agricultural things, so to revive and bring new people to these areas and make it happen again. So
I love how J turns out to be such a fruitful letter.
No, but Japan is quite big in my life now, and so was not planned.
No.
But became a kind of a big thing.
K, I'm thinking of a Latin American artist that I love very much, Frida Kahlo.
Yes.
So, does she mean something to you?
Well, Frida, yeah, of course. I think she is the Latin America representation of the women power, you know? And so, but also during certain moments, I was very involved with Spanish, looking not just Portuguese culture, but also Spanish kind of a thing. And then she was one, in a very abstract way. I had her as a kind of a reference for a short time, but of course I admire the whole thing, yeah.
I did a little research into her last year, because I was just studying her jewelry, which is a whole world in itself. And it was so interesting. And her father was German, and actually her famous monobrow, I realized, comes from the Black Forest, because she painted her own German grandmother in one painting. She was the one with the monobrow, not some other relatives.
Because I think I have no idea, because I visit only the place. But I can see, as an artist, I can see, she had a lot of tragical accidents in her life. So
including her husband.
Including her husband. And so... But I don't know. I think they have probably a good exchange and
also
agreement.
Tragic also. I mean, but...
Tragic, yeah. So, but I think what is she tried to make her body part of the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's that's what I'm wondering, you know? Because it's of course, it's not just dressing with Mexican kind of costumes, but also the way makeup and rings, and so everything on her represents something And it's not just about the painting, no, but
Yeah.
it's about everything else.
Yeah.
And also I can imagine as a woman in this context and married with one of the major Latin American artists, she should have a presence some way. So an eyebrow makes you, hi, I'm here.
My next letter, L, the low and the high and the low is very present in your work. Actually, I was just looking at this painting, for example, very closely, and I love how the texture, the imperfection of the little chip of paint missing here or there, or you see that obviously it's been layered. There was some other kind of, when you see how the paint is applied, you see there's something underneath. So it reminds me of, let's say, a truck that has been painted over and over again, you know, these layers, and that even in these details, I see that you have this affinity to elevate the low and to mix it with the high. So I see it really even in the minute details. But that's just...
Yeah, I think it's like I don't know if it's, yeah, I think I like I said, like collage, printmaking, all these things. So graphic, I love graphic art. So, but I feel as a painter myself, so how to connect. I didn't like the idea to paint directly. I always felt like, even when I was a student, the fact that paint the canvas and express myself, the marks of the brush stroke in my work, not the other works, was like a, and then I didn't know how to avoid it. So the technique, that technique, it was very good also on this point, because I could layering, I could have this juxtaposition, I could have my hand, but not as a kind of a expression in the way my mark would be, has a kind of a filter between me, the artist, and the thing. And also is very much handmade. What I really love, that's what is fascinating me in this so-called popular art or indigenous art. So it's made by humans, no? And I really want to cap this quality too in my paintings, instead of going to a very cold graphic thing. So this balance, yeah, I think it's you could say low and high in terms of psychological or emotional thing. I don't know if it's about it. Like, yeah. Like, go closer and, being cold and emotional and not at the same time.
Yeah. The next paintings that are on this wall, this brings me to M, titled Memories, Childhood Memories. How do you see, like, why are they named Memories? Is it something did you find the title after the painting was done, or
No, I think it's like I explained before, like this is more about these memories, like imaginary memories, logic in the way like, I don't know if in English that's a good word, but it would be more a child kind of, it's not my own memories, but how you can, like if it's now everybody close their eyes and think about childhood, no? Or any childhood, or if you even look, I work with children in the beginning of 80s, and then during 80s actually I work with children, and then I stopped completely, and then I start work with children again in 2011, more or less, only connected with shows and the museums that I do the workshop with, or now is growing. Because I am interested in this and going back to have this contact and also give the art to take some attention also for the children to the art field, what I think is a very important thing, and it's a bit disappearing now. So it's likely, and then is so that's the way. So it's not really has some. I think the compositions are like a balancing and dreaming, like a mathematical dream, but from some memories.
I think we can combine N and O, N for nature and O for ocean. How do you experience nature and how do you experience the ocean? Rio is right by the ocean, so how do you go swimming? Do you go watch the waves? How do you...
Nature, I would like to just
Yes, we
listen.
can go.
No, just listen or read. This is one paragraph from text that I wrote about the show. And this paragraph is because recently, and actually through a text that Yuko Hasegawa wrote for a book, it was discovered that Emanuele Coccia, which is an Italian philosopher, and then so this process calls to mind a description by Emanuele Coccia. Life is just a process through which the world can prolong and renew its existence exclusively by renewing and inventing new formula of mixture. Life is about nature, human beings, this is me. Life is about nature, human beings, spirituality, the sense of order and beauty, the spirit that structures. I think that's I felt really fantastic, really beautiful, the connection that she did between Emanuele, and actually he also contacted me afterwards because he thinks the way I work is the connection with nature is more towards how nature has this capacity of renewing after you just change elements or introduce something with the existing one and make it a kind of a chain reaction that will evolve to a certain point. So when I think this, of course, nature is where I live. So Rio has these, it's like you mentioned, letter U, urban thing. Yes. So I like, of course, to live in a city that is, I like urban context too. But that is what is fascinating about Rio, because Rio has a real nature, so oceans, forests, it's not just gardens, but it's forest, it's ocean, so it's the real nature, like combined with a very urban, with all the counters, all the difficulties, all the problems with anywhere else you can find, or maybe some specific things you can see in a big town, Latin America, big city. So it's this contrast that we live with, and it's kind of a very special thing. So, of course, from the applied art, like flowers, also like you look into the real nature, but also look into the people who had already, translated or developed its own relationship with the nature throughout the drawings and applied art and all that.
Well, maybe it's because I live so far from the ocean. I think if I lived right by the ocean, I would go there all the time. I don't know. How often do you have your feet in the sand?
Well, so that's a long story. No, I think I really realized after I started my international career, so I've been traveling, stay longer, so it has been a long journey. So it was, for everybody would know, that's early 90s. I started, especially from America, New York, and then actually I started in Latin America itself, and then America, and then Europe and Asia afterward. So, and then you start traveling, you start like, I keep saying like I have a life in English and a life in Portuguese. Because of course, after such a long time, so you develop relationships, friendships, and of course, a big range of work, a very important part. And I'm so pleased with everything that happened, and so happy and so important in the whole thing. And also in the development of my own work. So all these exchanges. But on the other hand, for me, it was very important to understand where my home was. Like going back to the letter A, So a studio. So when I first started in New York, I thought like it was 90s. I was a young artist, and then everything was fascinating, completely different from my environment, from my context in Rio. And it's very, so many artists like me immigrate immediately, no? To New York. And my first gallery, Edward Thorpe in New York, so he thought I was ready to move to New York, so he was ready to help me to move to New York. And then I was not sure. I was really in doubt for many years because I thought, if I don't move, I will stop my international career, because by that time it was not cell phones and the things, everything was very slowly, and traveling was very difficult, and so it's still very difficult. And so it's like, and then I realized what time I'm going to work. If I go to New York and I'll be okay, I'll have like a terrible place to live, and then it's like I needed to make some money because I didn't have money to survive, and so I would go to open and shows, meeting artists, everything, lots of fun, and then what time I'm gonna work?
And what time are you going to
they
the
will
ocean?
invite me, yeah, they invited me to do a show, and then what time I'm gonna do the show, and where, you know? And so, because also I have my colleagues, I was watching my colleagues from my same generation, from other countries in Latin America, and then I said, no, you know? And then when I go back to Rio, it was in fact, I felt, oops, I am at home, so, and then I can make my work and travel, yeah. And that was very important decision I did there, and keep being stronger and stronger, even of course, by the time I missed things, like during the pandemic, I stayed 2 years without traveling internationally.
That's a very good transition to the pandemic. P, preparatory drawings, because you used to not do preparatory drawings, right?
No,
preliminary drawings.
Exactly.
And then?
Exactly. So the pandemic time, of course, it was a terrible thing that happened. But at the same time, I got some gifts, First time, stayed 2 years without traveling internationally. So, and actually, I didn't travel at all during at least 1 year. And so, and then it's like going back to maybe the 80s, like when I was not traveling. And so, isolated in Rio completely, because nobody was also visiting me there. And then I could not, for the first 3 or 4 months, I could not even go to the studio. And then I decided to have a place at my home where I live. I never work, since my beginning, I never work and live in the same place. So I always had separate places. And so I organized at home a drawing space for me to make drawings. So I am a painter that don't do preliminary drawings. I didn't do the preliminary drawings for any of the paints, what is very common, in a painter's practice, but I never done. So I decided to just work with drawings because I was working, and then I had some paintings because I had a show in Shanghai at the Long Museum. And I had committed to make some work connected with some collections work. So, and I had left everything in the studio unfinished. And then I said, why could maybe I can continue to work? And then so I took some pictures, and then the pictures I brought to my home, and then I started making drawings on top of the pictures. And then I realized that would be a very interesting way, because also drawings gives you a lot of freedom, It's not that I don't have freedom with my paints, but it's a different freedom because it's less responsibility of what you do. So it's like, and also more intimate, Nobody's seeing it. Now I'm doing like that. So, and so that is, and then it was another open door for me, because in the way I work on top of pictures, and then I decided why I don't make my own drawings, that the drawings could become a drawing in itself as a work of art, what actually I only have done 7 until now, but a drawing as preliminary projects for canvas, because actually for projects like the wall painting and also the windows projects, that of course I always work on architectural plans, so they should have some preliminary things. But painting, I never really did, so it was my start, and that was really, really important. So here, the exhibition here shows a lot this. Also, the drawings bring some new possibilities of textures, some new materials, because I even mostly of the structure, I still the same technique that now has a name, monotransfer, the technique I use. But also, I'm painting direct on canvas again. It's like I find an interesting way to paint directly on canvas again. What is kind of important things too, you know.
I think I will summarize some of the next letters. I will just say the words because they have some kind of association for me with your work. Q, I was thinking of a quilt. R, I was thinking of romanticism. S, I was thinking of summer. And now we come to T, Taschen. You have a huge big book out from the Taschen Verlag, not far from here. Actually, I think you will be signing books this evening, right?
Yes. So Taschen and Hans Werner, you know, representing it very well, and Benedict, and of course it's Samia and Max. And this contest, I keep saying like it's before Taschen and after Taschen, you know, my studio, yeah. Because, when we started, nobody really knows, but it took many, 7 years for us to do that? Yeah, 7 years to make the book. But people think, oh, that's something so good. But it's like, it was a kind of a learning process, not, of course, not exactly about the work, even it was very good conversations I have with Hans Werner. I think he knows better about my work than me. But what is very interesting, because it was about the archival kind of a thing, you know? So the first meeting we have in Rio, and I start showing him, so I'm pretty organized, okay, but I'm not a digital person. It's like I'm not the first on the line to go to digital things, so I was a little behind on things that I should have done already when we start the book. And so I had a lot of physical, everything there, but still in the physical, lower quality on digital. And then, you know, like, so I needed a real improvement. And then I remember Benedict Taschen, and then he's saying to me, like, Beatriz, do you know where you are? You know, what is your position now? They know that. And that I never forget it. You should change it, everything. And then it's like, Hans Werner, we need 100% high quality. And I said, so it was great, actually. At first, it was like, oh my God, why I'm doing it? I thought, okay, forget about Taschen. And then you do whatever you want. And then it's like, no. And then I said, no. I like challenges. When challenges bring something good for your daily life, not challenge by challenge, no. But it's like challenges that, and of course, it was a wonderful thing. It's a fantastic book, no? And yeah.
And it comes out now. It comes out now with new editions, right? It's huge.
Yeah, we have the small edition, no? That is like small for Taschen. Yeah, so it's like a small, that's a signing and things. Okay. And you have the trade book that was launched in 20, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had urban already, because when you explained your relation to nature and the urban environment, that kind of sums it up. V for violet. I see violet in almost every painting. Does this color have any special meaning?
Well, violet is like a kind of disturbing, believe it or not. If you wanted to make something a bit strange, you introduce a stranger, you put violet or pink.
Okay. Oh, pink too?
Pink too. Sorry. Arrival, a stranger arrival. No, but it's true. Some colors, they have this power, what I think is a very good power.
Yeah.
And then it's a very important power, you know. And it's like if you see, maybe not here, but pink is some color that I really like to have as a partnership, because it could go to very interesting ways.
Yeah.
And it's easily go to the wrong side, and then you needed to push for the better side. So.
Well, with the last couple of letters, I became more creative. X, I was thinking of exposition, exhibition. So the X is not at the front of the letter of the word, but you have been in amazing shows. You have been at the biennial in Venice, at the Fondation Bayerler in Rien, Basel. You have been at the Fondation Cartier, at the Tate Gallery, and now here. But what's next? Are you working on an exhibition right now?
Yes, that is. I'm very sorry, but it's the only question we will skip.
Oh yeah, okay. We're keeping a secret. Okay.
Another vote.
We have two more letters. Y is for yellow. Yellow also seems to be in most of your works.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Now, yellow for me is the sun. It's always the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it brings some. This connection of like if you talk about, well, Ivona Blaswick, there's a British critic, curator, director of museum, and she said once that I like the geometry, organize your imagination. So I think this kind of you have imaginary things, so it's like something that motivates you. So yellow is always a connection with the sun, you know, and then even is not about the sun, the composition, but it always leads me to this kind of yellow and the gold too. But gold has a different other context, yes.
And the last is Z, which is in the middle of the word Hetzler. We are here at the wonderful Hetzler Gallery, and it's your 20 years you have been showing here. Do you remember your first show? How was that?
Yes, I remember. So I think that is interesting because it was not organized that we are going to celebrate 20 years. But then it was a great coincidence that we had the show and it's 20 years, which is a little shocking. But yes, I remember because it was winter time, you know. It was my first time in Berlin, and it was really snowing until your knees, and then you cannot. It was kind of a super dark. Even people don't understand it, but I prefer Berlin with the dark winter thing. I think I kind of prefer because it has a kind of the grayish, you know, what for me is unusual.
Yeah.
It's actually, because I live in a country that has sun all the time, you know, and so that is, for me, it's exotic, the snow. Like Frederick Paul said, it's snow in the tropics about my work. And so it's like, I am an artist that comes from the tropics, so you cannot forget it. And so it's like, for me, all this is snow and gray and strongly in a city, not in the countryside, but it is in an urban city. And then inside the gallery, I had all these colors, Then there's the vibrancy of the colors inside, and people were arriving. It was a lot of people came, and it was crowded, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, the sun!" Because it was very contrasting. So I never forgot this opening time because the contrast was so shocking that I didn't know that would go for the good or for the bad, Because when you talk about tropics, you never know which direction people will take. So, but I think it was the second part about being showing in Germany. So it's like how it's the country that's always painting quite strong here in history, in the contemporary art. So, and then for me I would say it was a wonderful surprise, and also like a very solid and deep exchange about my work, how they could understand, and understand that I am a painter, that I'm serious about it, even if I'm a woman from the tropics. But it's like, I dance, it's like serious. And what I was really intent to do, and my strong research on abstraction. So I think that was a great, kind of a gift I have in my trajectory, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Beatriz.
No, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
So I don't know if you ask you questions? Questions? No, I don't
Does
know.
anybody have a question? Or yes.
Thank you for your exchange. And Beatriz, I was at one of your first lectures at an American university in the 90s in Pennsylvania.
Ah.
And it struck me in that you first talked about your process, and you kind of talked about it during the talk, how the process is meant to mediate your mark making. Mm-hmm. And I think you kind of talk about the transition a bit during the pandemic, and how that kind of made the transition. I'm curious, within these paintings, it seems that there's more of your hand in the paintings, even though you use this process of removal. And I was wondering if you could kind of talk about that a little bit more in terms of like that transition from like the 90s till now in terms of
Yes, I think during the pandemic, certainly things that's more, I don't know if I'll be able to express, but the drawing things, what is a kind of a more intimate process that I never had before. And so that, of course, took me to a different world or universe of possibilities. And also like the investigation of going back painting on the canvas and leave especially details or textures or, small big touch of like how to make it maybe with more human touch, because I was thinking about it a lot. It's always been like maybe the structure or the core of my work has been exactly certainly things like poetical spirituality that has been always part of abstract art, and maybe not exactly connect with my process, but inside, yes, because why I would look to the artisans in Carnival because Carnival in Brazil is something really serious, and it's about a community, a social group, so it's like a very important thing. And these people, it's a kind of a religion, action, because people, the artisans, they dedicate their lives to it, and so looking their way, they do it. So that is something that always motivates me to be an artist. So during the pandemic, I met it again. It's like, it's not that I wanted to make more public it, because certainly things, I was not, how can I say, certainly things that always has been more associated with women practice, and I'm proud that I'm a woman. But the thing is, I want to be considered serious. And so I want that people would understand that I am intelligent, that I think about things and I make things happen based on thoughts, based on thinking about things. I know probably it's a bit difficult for people to understand it, but it's like as a painter, come from Brazil, working with colors, applied art, Carnival. So You arrive like a, So to make people understand that I was a serious artist so I tried to put this spirituality on the side and make people understand that I was a geometric. So, like the rational, I'm very rational. I am, that's true. But it's like I have other things that is underneath this rational that actually is what move my rationality decisions. And so that was pandemic making me to, I feel more confident after the pandemic to express it more clear what happened actually in the New York show in the last year in November. So, and that is like, it was good that this is open door for me to make it, to continue from that point.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. There's another question.
Hi. I am wondering about, for me, your images contain this sense of organic growth and movement, and they capture these patterns that we find in the natural world, but at the same time, they can be described as hard-edged, and it's a serious form of abstraction that has this kind of meticulous internal structure. So I'm wondering, could you speak a bit about how you combine these two aspects that maybe are considered to be opposites by other people, or do you think they're not opposites?
No, it's a difficult question to answer because, it's about, like I said before, like maybe the geometry organized my imagination. So, exactly. When I found this technique, gives me the freedom. So to have my own motifs and combine it, painted, not cut out, painted, and with the colors I want, with the shapes I want, and then trying to place it. So that gives me the freedom to organize it in the way I want it. So, and follow it and believe that could be our way to go, So I think one actually Brazilian curator, Ivo Mesquita, he said like the most Brazilian thing I have is my freedom of making things happen on the canvas. And so I think that is a very interesting thing because the way it's part of my culture, like this kind of freedom to put things and connect things without having this kind of a more heavy background and feel responsible for the background. It could be a good thing, it could be not so good too. It's like we have some flexible boundaries. So we could, that is, I think, is a good definition. What is, I think, is a quality that I think we have in our culture, but of course, it also could bring something that's not so interesting. So I don't know if it's hard to understand. Cultures are very roots thing, so you'll never really understand. But like, I think maybe it's freedom is a good way, rationalize freedom, so a controlled freedom. Because everything, that is what is, everything in my work always has been about controlling things. So it's rational, like when I talk about my rationality, it's because nothing is there by chance, And so has this rationality, this rational decisions, what makes real things happen, And not to take maybe not so interesting ways to go, I don't know if I answer your question.
Okay, then. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you so much for
Thank you very much,
answering all
Lisa.
these
It has
letters.
been really fun. I think it was.